Good morning, Brian King here. A little snazzier than usual. I'm going into Chicago today for an interview, but an interview that's going to be broadcast across the internet. But before I get into that, I want to address something that's come up in a couple conversations with parents over the past few days. And let me preface it by saying this. When students enter the school, they subconsciously or consciously need to decide to leave their freedom outside. One of the essential agreements of school is that the kids have no decisions other than compliance, that is. They give up their right to choose their interests, what they're going to learn, and so on. The teacher is in charge. The teacher is a dictator. The students have no rights. And if they do not comply, they get in trouble. Doesn't that sound like a crappy deal to you? I sure think it is. So what brought this to mind? I talked to a parent at length yesterday who is dealing with a school who, in her perception, hey, whoever gave me the like, I totally love you. Please identify yourself. Anybody that's watching, and feel free to comment, like, love, share, so others can join the conversation. But the mother I was talking to yesterday is dealing with a school, hey, April, that wants to view her daughter's ADHD behavior as simply that, behavior. This isn't a disability, and you can't make excuses for her, and she needs consequences. Okay, consequences. Consequences, that concept as it's used, is in response to behavior where it is believed that the child knows better, that the child actually has the skills to do right, but chooses not to. That is in a very important distinction, because the schools believing this, that this child with severe ADHD, maybe some impulse issues, who lacks the skills to execute effectively in the school environment, a kid with ADHD is doing this stuff on purpose, knows better, and should behave themselves. What a load of crap. And entire school systems that believe this is frightening, because the information is there. The research has been done to demonstrate what really is the case for these kiddos. But you have this top-down institutionalized ignorance where they're basically collectively saying, we know the information's out there, but for whatever reason, we want to live according to this little bubble that we've decided to live in and have it cost these special needs kids their education. Think about that. How awful that with all of the different options we have to make education accessible to the diverse population that we live in, and yet all of our tax dollars being poured into these schools, they haven't learned that yet. I have to wonder whether there's some kind of a time machine where people that are living in the internet age enter that building and suddenly their brains are yanked back to 1950 and makes them incapable of innovative and progressive thinking. Now, I have to emphasize, because I always get these comments, not every school is like that. Absolutely true. The school that my kids go to has been phenomenal. These are teachers that are reading the books, reading the articles, doing the research, asking me questions, and my boys have blossomed in this school system. But they've also been to schools in the same state that were incredibly backwards and very fixed in their mindset. Let me give you another example that just came up in one of my discussion threads this morning. The teacher that was upset that a child with ADHD needed to chew gum in class in order to regulate. I've got two gum chewers myself. The younger two need a lot of proprioceptive input, and they get it through the jaw joints. They chew when they're able to focus. But here was the teacher's objection. The teacher didn't want it allowed because it was against her rules. Wow. So in other words, her need to have control over her little dictatorship was far more important than helping this child access the curriculum. Scary. And I'd like to think that she was unique in this thinking. She's not. There are a lot of teachers that, for some reason, have really gotten caught up in this paradigm that they have to have total control in the classroom and that their complete, unquestioned authority is necessary for education. It isn't, okay? There are classroom models where the kids help each other. It's much more collaborative. They're able to kind of seek out their own way of learning, Montessori. There are so many different ways kids can learn. And they can learn much better if they're taught diversity in learning styles. Imagine that. Exploring and celebrating diversity in the classroom. How much more could the kids benefit from realizing that just because Johnny here needs an accommodation, it doesn't make him weird. It doesn't make him one of those kids. It means that, hey, Johnny's got these neat new strategies I haven't thought of before. Can we explore that? Because they might actually be good for the entire class. Man, wouldn't that be innovative, revolutionary, progressive? Holy cow, we can't have that. So to the teachers out there that I love dearly, I've had a couple teachers that have absolutely changed my life. And I love them to pieces. I consider myself part of their legacy as teachers, okay? But for those that for whatever reason feel that their authority needs to be absolute or they can't be effective as teachers, I really want to encourage you to look at that. Now, when did you make the decision that that was an essential part of your role and effectiveness as a teacher? Get the support you need in order to learn greater flexibility while maintaining some kind of discipline or direction. But you are not dealing with a bunch of lions that are going to eat you alive if you don't crack the whip every now and then. Yeah, there are some kids that are a little rough around the edges and have a difficult home life or don't have the emotional maturity, and they can legitimately bring some disruption to the class. But you can also create a classroom culture where behavior like that isn't tolerated, not because it's unusual or inappropriate like the ADHD kids, but because it's genuinely toxic. I'm talking here about name calling, bullying, swearing out loud, stuff like that. That's behavior that we can agree that's not conducive to education. Let's work together to practice other forms of communication and support each other in learning those other forms of communication instead of just simply punishing it. Somebody in one of my threads mentioned Ross Greene's work. If you don't know Ross Greene's work, look it up, because what he did research-wise, and there are a lot of us out there that are using a similar style in terms of collaborating with your child in problem solving. That's something I've been doing for well over a decade now. But what's different about Ross's stuff is he examined it using a research model. So he did all of us that are doing this stuff a tremendous service by documenting that this actually works. And it can work with the most difficult kids. You don't just suspend them, give them detention, punish them, shame them in front of the class, threaten to expel them. If you got difficult kids like that, you need to read Ross Greene's The Explosive Child, where he really starts to get into how do you work with these most difficult kids. And find the coaches out there like me that are really skilled at working with these difficult kids, because they're not beyond reach. You just need to get outside your own very limited paradigm in terms of how things must work in order for life to work. There are so many more options, but it's never going to begin, especially in the classroom, with the idea that my authority is law, nobody else's opinion matters, my way or the highway. We are not sending our kids into a world of dictators, depending on the country you live in. But in this country, where we need free thinkers, we need people that embrace their creativity instead of being told, you need to stay on task. Put that little sketch away. Stop looking out the window and imagining. Stay on task with this boring crap you know you're never going to use in your life. Seriously? These are kids that are punished for having the exact kind of mindset they need to compete in this world. And we're telling them it's wrong. So much needs to change. And everybody needs to be a part of that change. But teachers, you have the power to shape lives, to inspire, to help children think bigger, not just to do what they're told when they're told to do it. Okay? So a lot of food for thought here. I hope this has been helpful. Please continue the conversation. All of you that have chimed in, I really appreciate you being here. And if you want to talk to me privately, you know how to find me. And if there's anybody you feel can hear this and really needs to hear it, please share it with them. And I just want to finish by saying, there are some teachers out there in this world that I think are absolutely amazing. They are changing lives every single day. But the ones out there that aren't working from that model are doing some real damage. And I'm hoping the ones that are making a difference somehow find a way to impact. Now, I see two right now, Jocelyn and Kristen, who just joined in, that are two amazing teachers that are out there putting the kids first and realizing that connecting with those students, forming that relationship, is really the agent of education right there. Is really the bedrock of trust in the classroom. That the student says, I trust you to lead me, to have my best interest in mind. I don't just trust you to shout at me, embarrass me in front of classmates because I didn't follow the rules. So I'll leave it at that for today, otherwise I'll miss my train. So I hope this was useful to you, and I may even be able to check in some other time today and tell you how the interview went. So thank you again for stopping by. I really appreciate your time. This has been Brian. We'll talk again soon.